Um, Hi, I think I know everybody on here since I have. Oh, there's Sid Bird. So the way that these demos work is we if you haven't heard before, if you're one of the few new people to this call, um, it's a conversation between the developers and Stephanie Larison, our product owner. We're not taking new feature requests, and if you have any questions, we ask that you hold them to the end. I'm Ryan Steens. I'm the assistant director at Texas Digital Library, and I work with Gad here. And Gad will be the person who is talking directly to Stephanie today. If you have questions, you can type them into the chat window too, but we probably won't address the questions until the end. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton off to Gad. And do keep in mind you are being recorded today. So if you can mute your phones, all the better. If you need to mute your computer speakers, since we are doing that today, you can do that as well. So.
All right, great. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And you should be able to see our backlog for Jira. This is how we are managing the project and how we're managing the stories and how we know how much work is left to do on Vireo 4. The current sprint consists of these stories right here. They add up to about 31 points, I think is what we added them up to. There's a couple of bugs that were fixed. And there's a couple of features that have been implemented. Unfortunately, though, the features, we did not have a time today to merge all the branches together. So we will not be showing the UI portion of the changes today. But in 2 weeks, we intend on fully showing all the changes for this sprint and next sprint in the UI. That being said, the things that were put in were some more validation stuff, and then we started working on the workflow steps for an organization. So if you guys remember the UI from last time, there was the triptych for managing the organizations, and then the bottom pane had that center tab where you could configure the workflow steps for a particular organization, and that is what we have been working on this last sprint. Like I said, unfortunately, we did not have time to merge the branches today, but we intend to show that UI change next demo in about 2 weeks. So that being said, we have quite a bit of work left to do still to get Vireo 4 out the door. We intend to finish up the organization and workflow UI by next demo, and hopefully get started on the submission list view for the administrators to be able to list the submissions. But that is pretty much the update for the last sprint.
Gad, can you go back to the other screen and kind of go over what the stories are that are currently being worked on?
Sure. VIR 201 is one of the big stories. It deals with basically setting a paradigm for the back end to validate any input from the front end, and a standard way of coding all of that so that we have a consistent experience for the users whenever they're filling in forms or whenever they're inputting any input into the Vireo interface, whether you're an administrator or student or regardless of who you are. The experience for putting any information into Vireo and then getting some feedback back from the web page about invalid data or anything like that, it'll all be standardized and it'll all behave the same all throughout the interface. The other pieces were the workflow step panel, which is what I described just now, which is basically the ability to add workflow steps to an organization, and then also the ability to add fields to each workflow step. So both of those stories were being worked on this sprint. And this basically means that the workflow steps and the input fields for each workflow step, this is the aggregation that has to happen of, through the hierarchy of all the organizations. So that's partially why we didn't have time to merge all the branches is we ran into some trouble coding that, and we just ran out of time this sprint, but we intend fully to show it next sprint.
And VIR 168.
Oh, this was just left over from last sprint. It wasn't merged in because we're waiting on another pull request from one of the libraries that we're using in Vireo. So this is just left over from last sprint. Jason implemented it, I think. Yeah.
And 214.
And yeah, 214 was a bug that we found at the last sprint. And the same thing with 205 and 204. They were bugs that we found. That's why they have that little red icon next to them. Those were just bugs. And that's also why they don't have any points assigned to them.
If you have not been to a call before, in general, what we would be doing is going over each of these features and demonstrating how it was implemented because of the scope creep, or however you want to define it, of us going from 10 points. I know from 10 points to 16 points.
Yeah.
For example, in the story Gad was working on, we just ran out of time to get everything merged back in. This is a highly unusual demo for us. So what it basically means is we're going to have twice as much stuff as normal to show at the next demo. So it might be a little bit longer. At this point, I do want to hand it over to Stephanie to ask any questions.
I'm not sure that I have any questions. Thanks, Gad. I think I'm following along. So, so everything they're all marked in red. That means they're complete, or they're just part of the sprint.
All of these are part of the sprint. If you see, they're separated into columns of to do, in progress, testing, and done.
No, I didn't notice. I did not notice that.
Yeah. So that's where they all are. When we merge everything, all of these cards should move themselves over to done, and then we'll start a new sprint. We'll go back to this backlog, and we'll pick more stories out of the backlog to throw into the next sprint, and get them implemented. And like I mentioned, those stories will probably more than likely be finishing up the organization workflow UI, and maybe get started on the list of submissions for the administrators.
Okay. So it looks like, so the one that was still to do was number 142, and that's 13 points, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be a part of this next sprint.
Right. This is part of what we were working on up until like an hour before the demo. So we're still working on it. It wasn't quite finished.
Oh.
And
You sort of, okay.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be finished very soon. It's not going to be part of the next one because you're going to have it done before.
Correct. It shouldn't be all 13
Any
points.
moment now.
Yeah, it shouldn't be all 13 points left on it. It should be, fewer than that. But yeah, this one really should be in the in progress column because it is in progress.
Okay.
Stephanie, would it be helpful at the next demo that you're able to attend if we go ahead and do the formal process of moving these tickets over one by one with you as part of the demo?
If I can understand the tickets, so
Sure.
I think he could do a pretty good job of putting it into more English, whatever, for us. So yeah, it's usually the bugs and stuff. I guess you say it's a bug, we fixed it. It's like, okay, good, hey, whatever it was, whatever that was. Yeah, possibly. I mean, the more that the more that we see and stuff, and I can relate them to these tickets, then it might be helpful. I guess it depends on the time and how easy that is to do.
It should be fairly fluid for us to be able to do. It'll just illustrate, the work that we've taken on and what we're moving over. So we'll incorporate that into the next demo, and then the following one we're able to attend, we'll hopefully have the process all polished up and good for you.
Right. Okay. Sounds great.
Great. And-
Obviously working hard.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess with all that being said, our next demo looks like it will be May 4th. Is that right?
No.
No, May 11th.
Oh, May 11th.
Yep.
Yep, May 11th. And then we'll
We'll be at TC.
TCDL on the 25th. So I'm not sure that we'll have a demo on the 25th, but we'll talk about that when we get closer to that date. But until then, I guess we will meet again on the 11th. Same bat channel, same bat time.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Oh, quick question from
Wait a minute. Uh-oh.
quick question from Renee. Let's see, how can I get this come back? There we go.
Laura?
We're going to have a Vireo 4 training in the fall, but that date is to be determined. There is a Vireo 4 webinar scheduled for July 21st, and then we're working with Stephanie to schedule one later in the fall once we see where the progress is for Vireo. So more soon, but definitely yes, just not sure when exactly.
And it is likely we'll do it in Austin.
Yeah. I believe the plan was to do like an all-day training, 9 to 4, at the Perry Castaneda Library here in Austin. Mm-hmm.
Renee, that's true. That was originally scheduled as a training date, but as the project has pushed beyond when we believed it was going to be going on, with that training date has been transformed into a webinar, an informational webinar.
Yes, and I believe it's from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock a.m. on the 21st is that webinar. And Stephanie Larison will be leading that. So.
We were never going to roll out Vireo until just before the semester began. That's still our plan. Really, the pressure now is going to be on us to get the training together and get training materials together much more quickly. It is possible that this may mean a delay till later, but we will not roll it out mid-semester. Vireo, we only like to roll out just before semesters or right at the beginning of semesters. So you would not expect to see it, for example, in October getting rolled out. Okay, that works. And of course, we will work with all of you guys. We may have ideas in our heads here at TDL when we think we're going to do things, but of course, we only do those things once we have approval from you guys.
All right. And I guess unless there's any other questions, we can let everybody go.
Thank you.
All right, great. Y'all have a good rest of your day.
So long.
Bye.